Namaste. Welcome to the 18th video in the overall series and introduction to Sanatana Dharma. This is the fifth video in the mini series, the Hindu concept of God. You would have noticed two things. One, I have a virtual background. This is from the Buddha Nilakant temple in Nepal. It is basically Vishnu lying on Adisesha. It's a sculpture that floats in water. Plus, the thumbnail of this video is again of Vishnu. It is a photo that was taken in the Bangkok International Airport. There is a beautiful sculpture of the kSiirasAgaramathana, or the churning of the ocean of milk. Funnily enough, I don't think that kind of a sculpture is present anywhere in India. In Thailand, it exists. So the photo is basically Vishnu as part of this sculpture. Why do I have these two images up? Vishnu, another name for Vishnu is Narayana. Today, we will be touching upon a little thing called, touching upon a little about something called the Narayana Suktam. Also, a small word of caution. Today's video may be relatively a little lengthier and also a little more technical, so to say. Let's start today's video. Let's start with a quick recap of what we have covered in this series earlier, in the mini series earlier rather. We spoke about the concept of Ishvara and Bhagavan versus God, what Ishvara means, what Bhagavan means. There are certain meanings, right, that are associated with these terms. Then we also spoke about the concept of parabrahma, which is which is ultimate divinity without any form of quality, shape, name, gender, size, nothing. And we also discussed about how parabrahma is the only thing that exists, irrespective of any limitations of time and space, that he is time and space. He, she, it is time and space. Then we also discussed how Hinduism is both monotheistic because of the parabrahma concept and polytheistic because it has the Shanmata or the six principal Vedic deities available. We also spoke about what Ishvara does in the earlier video. The reason for those scare quotes is that by definition, Ishvara, we will talk about something like karma and all in the later videos. However, by definition, Ishvara does not do anything. He, she, it has no actions, has no karma. It looks as if he or she does some things. This is the reason we covered, we spoke about creation, sustenance, destruction, tirodhanam, anugraham in the earlier video. Today, we will be talking about where parabrahma is. Again, you may say that this kind of sounds contradictory to whatever I have discussed today. Why I am saying that, we'll understand as we go ahead. Now, again, so where does he not exist? Everything that is parabrahma, is Ishvara. So Ishvara, parabrahma more specifically, exists everywhere. Everything that is Ishvara. However, let us also talk about slightly more specific aspects. Everybody is aware of the Bhagavata Puranam written by Vedavyasa. A gentleman named Bammera Potana translated this into Telugu a couple of 100 years back, extremely popular in among the Telugu people. This is called Andhramahagavatamu. Let me take a poem from this work and talk about where Ishvara exists, or why we say that he exists everywhere. Just an example. The poem goes like this: Kaladam Bodhi Kalanduga. Don't worry, I'll translate it here and there. Kaladam Bodhi Kalandugali Kaladaka Shambunan Kumbinin Kaladagnin Desalan Pagalla Nisalan Kadyota Chandratmalan Kaladonkaramanan Trimurtula Tringa Bitulan Dantatan Kaladu Kaladishundu Kalandu Tandri Vedakanganela Iayadan. Now, Kaladu basically means hair, exists, is. Half of it is Sanskrit. Ambodhi basically means the sea or water, in fact, water. Gali is air. Akasham, self-explanatory. Kumbhi, Sanskrit term again for the earth. Agni, fire. So here we spoke about the five Panchamahabhutas, or rather the Panchamahabhutas or the five elements. Then it says Dishalan, Pagalda, Nishadan. Disha, directions, whether 4, 6, 8, 10, whichever way you want to take it. In the directions, he exists in the directions. Pagalda, Nishalan, days and nights. Now, if we look at whatever let me cover one more. Khadyota Chandratmalan. Khadyota is the sun. Chandratmalan, sun and Atma also we can say. Now, by taking these two sentences, it is apparent that he exists everywhere, because we spoke about the five elements which make up everything, which make up creation. Then we spoke about Tishalan, directions, space. Pagalda Nishalan, Kadyota Chandratmalan. At least as far as living beings are concerned, at least on Earth, our time is measured in terms of the rotations of the Earth around itself or around the sun, right? Because of the sun, the moon, that is how we keep a measure of time. So days and nights, sun, moon, Atma, here we are talking about time. So he exists as time and space everywhere. Omkara Munan, he exists in the Omkara, he is the Omkara. In fact, there is we discussed the statement a little while back also. Om ityeka aksharam Brahma. Om, that alphabet itself is Brahma. There's a saying in Sanskrit. Trimurtula, he is there in the Trimurtis. The principles of creation, sustenance, and destruction, rather than individual deities, so to say, not just individual deities, but the concepts of creation, sustenance, and destruction. Trilinga Vyaktulam, in the three genders. Hinduism is extremely inclusive. It does not say that only human beings are divine. Why? The next phrase is Antatan, which means everywhere. So it says God is present in all the genders, whether it is male, neuter, female, and not just in human beings, Antatan, everywhere, in all human beings. Kaladishundu Kalandu Tantri Vedakanganela Yeyadan. Basically, it means, my dear father, you do not need to search here and there. He exists everywhere in the list I just gave you, which literally is everywhere and at every time. Right? This is part of the Narasimhavatara story, Prahlada story, where he is actually having a discussion with his father, the demon Hiranyakashipu. The father asks the child where God exists. So he replies with this poem. That way, he exists everywhere. Then, in us, let us talk about us. We are a Parabrahma. So, in fact, there is a saying, right? Shivoham. There is a work by Adi Shankara. Please look this up whenever you have time. It is called the Nirvana Shatkam. There are a couple of stanzas. Each stanza ends with the sentence Chidanandarupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. So the term Shiva itself has multiple meanings, but let us simply say that I am Ishvara, I am Parabrahma. Let us take it in that aspect. So Hinduism says we are Parabrahma. And when we say we are specifically referring to the Atma, the soul, and not the body, because the body ultimately dies, it decomposes. The Atma is eternal. So when we say we, in fact, if you look at a lot of great thinkers, like Ramana Maharshi and all, they ask us to think about what this I is. This I is not my mind, is not my ego, is not my body, but it is that Parabrahma within us, which is actually giving us this identity called I. Okay. There are a lot of people who make fun of particular Swami. Let me not take names. God only knows what kind of person he is. However, there are certain, so when he speaks about I being everywhere or everything being me, it is actually rooted in Hinduism properly. That's not a joke. Okay. So similarly, in Advaita, we have something called the Mahavakyas. There are in fact 4 Mahavakyas. I've just taken 3 here. Please again look this up when you have time. Something called the Mahavakyas. In that, what they basically, I'm taking only 3. Very simply, there's a huge amount of literature that exists behind all of this. I'm just taking the sentences for now. One of the statements says, Tattvamasi, Tattvam Asi. You are that. You are that. That is Parabrahma. We cannot describe, right? So, Tat. We use pronouns as we discussed some time back. Then Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahma Asmi. I am Parabrahma. And when I say I again, it is the Jivatma, which is no different from Paramatma according to Advaita. Then we also have something called I am Atma Brahma. Basically, it's saying this Atma is Brahma. These 3 are examples of how Hinduism says that we are a Parabrahma. Parabrahma is nobody but us. We are nobody but Parabrahma. It is just that because of Maya, because of ignorance, because of avidya, we do not realize that state. So Parabrahma exists in all of us. Let us get a little more specific. Let us talk about the chakra concept. Very, especially in today's world where yoga is extremely popular, Kundalini, Chakras, these are very popular of late in a way. I can probably say that. Just a note of caution. As long as these are being understood for academic interest, for knowledge, it is good, it is nice. The moment you talk about practice, please do not fiddle around with this. Kundalini is basically the energy is is considered to be the feminine aspect of Parabrahma. Shakti, this is the energy behind entire creation. This exists in us as prana, for example. And Kundalini very specifically is used to refer to this manifestation of Shakti, which resides at the base of our spine. You can say, in fact, all living beings, or at least those with a spine, so to say. Kundalini lies dormant in all of us. And please understand that this is the energy behind this universe. So it is not something that is to be played around with as far as practice is concerned. Any Kundalini yoga, any practices related to Kundalini must be undertaken only under the tutelage of a proper guru. Please do not do any kind of self-paced practice or self-paced learning. It will be suicidal, literally. Now, we have the chakras. I'll try to deal about the chakras in a later video. Basically, when we take the spine, the lowest chakra is something called the Muladhara, where Kundalini is said to be dormant like a snake with 3.5 coils. The top of the spine here, in fact, the chakra is called Sahasrara. So just remember these things. We'll again link these a little later, taking Mr. Samavedam Shanmuga Sarma's help. So we have the Muladhara, where Kundalini resides dormantly. Then we have the Sahasrara. In the end of the Lalita Sahasranamam, there is a phrase, Sivashakchaikya Rupini. So when the yogi raises this dormant energy lying at the Muladhara and ultimately makes it hit the Sahasrara, he has attained unity between Shiva and Shakti. He thus attains Mukti. This is something called Kapala Moksham. So there are yogis who exit their body consciously by moving the Kundalini Shakti from the Muladhara through the spine, through various chakras. There are 6 chakras, and this is in fact the 7th by one count. There are more also by a different count. So a yogi who attains Mukti, who exits this body consciously, will not be born again. This is something called Kapala Moksham, because that prana, the Kundalini Shakti, exits the body through the Sahasrara. That person will no longer be born again. This is Mukti, this is Kapala Moksham. Vivekananda is said to have passed away this way. In fact, there's a book series, there's a trilogy of books called the Aghura trilogy by an American named Robert Svoboda. The second book in this series is something called Kundalini. The name of the book itself is Kundalini. Please read it when you have time. Extremely interesting. But again, let me make this clear again. Please do not practice anything from your end, because this ultimately is the energy behind the entire creation, behind the entire universe. This resides in each and every one of us. So Hinduism says we are all divine. We are divinity. Right? This is one example. Now here, initially we spoke about Ishvara, Parabrahma being everywhere. Then we said we are Ishvara. Then we got a little more specific. We spoke about the Sahasrara, Kundalini. Now let's go a step further. Let's come to the heart. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a statement which Krishna says to Arjuna, Ishvaraha sarvabhuteshu hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati. Again, let me reiterate, Hinduism is extremely egalitarian. I think that's a term. Nobody is denied access to God, and nobody is said to be not divine. Even animals, everything in creation is divine. Ishvaraha sarvabhuteshu. Ishvara sarvabhuteshu basically means in all beings. Hriddeshe, in the heart, in the region of the heart. We are not necessarily talking about the physical heart, in the space. Arjuna tishtati. Tishtati is a baitha hua hai. He sits there. Right? This is something that he said. Now, there may be a question that, okay, you just said everything is Ishvara. Then you said Atma is Ishvara. Then you said Muladhara, Kundalini is God. Then you said Sahasrara is God. Now we are talking about heart. What is this? I was recently listening to something that Mr. Sri Samavedam Shanmuga Sarma said. Hinduism says that when we are in the wombs, when I'm in the womb of my mother, by the 7th month, my entire nervous system, my entire Nadi Mandala, the subtle body, we have various bodies, not just what we see, this is the gross body. And there are 72,000 Nadis, or let's say, if we call it the subtle body, the nerve equivalents of that body. There are 7 to 2,000 nadis in the body. All of this is ready by the 7th month. So there what happens is Chit Shakti, Chit, remember Sat, Chit, Ananda, Chit consciousness, Ishvara's consciousness enters the Sahasrara, hits the Mooladhara, comes to the heart and spreads into the 72,000 nadis through the heart. Through not exactly the physical heart, the heart space, right? This is the place where Ishvara is said to exist in all of us as our Atma. So that way there is a relation between all of this. Sahasrara, Mooladhara, the Chit Shakti, the Chit Shakti or the Chit Shakti enters the body from the Sahasrara. In fact, it is also said, right, that when children are born, this bone is very soft, it's not formed. That is said to be, some people say that this is where the Sahasrara actually exists. So the Chit Shakti enters through the Sahasrara, passes through the Sushumna Nadi, the primary Nadi which is there in the spine, hits the Mooladhara, comes to the heart, and then spreads to the 72,000 nadis through from the heart. Also, a yogi, when he raises the Kundalini, he actually starts from the Mooladhara and through the Sushumna Nadi, which is in the middle, raises it up ultimately to the Sahasrara and thus attains Mukti. So Sushumna is said to be the energy channel, a very subtle energy channel that exists in the spine. Obviously, a surgeon can't see this. It doesn't exist in the physical body, so to say. Now let us come to something called the Narayana Suktam, which talks about this heart region, right? With due apologies, I know I will mess up the pronunciation somewhere. The Narayana Suktam is actually taken from the Rig Veda. So it is actually Vedic recitation. I will try to chant it with as little errors or with as few errors as possible. I will still make some errors. I apologize upfront for that. Plus, I will try to give you a very rough translation. It's a very, very crude translation. But this basically explains how the entire energy, parabrahma, the ultimate divinity, exists in each and every one of us. So please remember this. We are not just sinners. There are some people who say you are a sinner. In fact, even Hindus, when they do a puja, there is a statement, Papoham, Papakarmaham, Papatma, Papasambhava, Salahimam, Krupaya, Deva Sharanagata Vatsala. We say that I am a sinner, I am born of a sinner. We do say some things. However, also understand that we are divine by nature. By nature, we are divine. We are divinity. We have divinity. So it is very much within our potential to realize that divinity. All I'm saying again, remember what I said in the earlier videos also. Whatever I'm saying right now is just narration. It is not experience. But it is within the grasp of a human being, if not in one birth, at least after a couple of births, to realize this divinity. Please understand the difference, right? It is like, very crudely put, reading about how to ride a bicycle and actually riding a bicycle. They're two different things, right? That way, what I am telling you is something called Paroksha Jnanam, which is basically bookish, which I have read. And then there is something called or Aparokshanabhuti, Paroksha Jnanam, which is something which you have realized. God only knows when each one of us will reach that state. Let's see. But okay, now let's come to the Narayana Suktam. I will read out a large portion of the Narayana Suktam and also talk about some of the meanings of some of the shlokas in a very crude manner. It goes like this. Adho nishtyavitasthyanте nabhyam uparatishthati jvalamalakulam bhati vishwasya yatanam mahat santatakum shilabhistu lambatya kosha sannibham tasyante tuchiragum sukshmam tasmin sarvam pratishtitam tasya madhye mahanagmita vishvartir vishwato mukhah sograbhugvibhajan tishthannaharamadarakavih त्रिकोर्ध्वमधश्चायिरस्मैस्तस्य सन्तता सन्तापयति स्वन्देहमापादतलमस्तकः तस्य मध्ये अग्निशिखा अणीयोर्ध्वा व्यवस्थितः नीलतोयमध्यस्थाद्विद्युल्लेखे बभास्वर नीवारशोकवत्तन्वी पीताभा स्वत्यणूपमा तस्याश्शिखाया मध्ये परमा आत्मा व्यवस्थितः स ब्रह्म स शिवश्च हरिश्चेन्द्रः सोऽक्षरः परमस्वराट्. This is just part of the Narayana Suktam. Basically, what it is saying is, in the region of the heart lies an eternal, undecaying flame. That eternal undecaying flame is Narayana, is Parabrahma. You are that flame. That is your true nature. Uh, and also, because it is Parabrahma, Sa Brahma, Sa Siva, he is Brahma, the creator, Siva, destroyer or Laikaraka, Harihi, Indra is the Lord, Paramaswarat. Swarat basically means he who shines by his own power, by his own light. This flame in the region of the heart. So there is a garland of flames inside that, there is a fire, and in that there is a very subtle, fine flame, which is Parabrahma. The Narayana Suktam, please listen to this when you're in an appropriate state. It is very popular and happily available on YouTube also. The meaning also in a little more detail is available on the internet. Please look this meaning up and understand that not only is Parabrahma everywhere, Parabrahma is inside us. We have the Sahasrara, we have the Mooladhara, we have the this is something called the Gaharakasha. Something I'm also trying to understand a little more in detail. It is called the Gaharakasha, the Akasha inside us in the heart. He exists everywhere. He exists as us. And this is where Ishvara exists. And this is what Hinduism says about where Ishvara exists. He exists everywhere within us. We are Ishvara. This is something I keep saying this again and again. This is the beauty of Hinduism. This is the beauty of Sanatana Dharma. I would like to end today's video at this particular stage. There might be a lot of, for those who are interested, there may be a lot of questions which today's video might actually have given rise to. I will try to touch upon some of the concepts that we've spoken about today in later videos. For example, something like the chakra, something about the Kundalini Shakti, for example. I will try to touch upon these in later videos. Also, I received one suggestion. I'm extremely grateful that there are many people that are showing a lot of interest in my videos. So I was given a suggestion to make my videos a little more easily searchable, because most of my videos are taken from the speeches of Sri Samavedam Shanmukha Sharma. I am planning to give the name for this video series as something like Guruvachanam or something like that. Let's see what name I finally come up with. And once again, thank you for watching this video. Please take care. Namaste.